And the leaders who are now saying, for example, Mnangagwa must go, Mnangagwa must die, and things like that in this desperate kind of language. It is a misguided spirit of seeking the destruction of our nation. So we just call our nation to come to a common sense position. Even if you don't agree with the president, you don't agree with the ruling party, that's the party we have now. That is the people in charge now. Those are the ones whom God has ordained to lead us and build now. So whether we differ or not, maturity and real statesmanship for those of you who are in opposition is stand and be supportive. And if you are being opposing, don't oppose for the sake of opposing. Oppose because you see that it is something that is going to be constructive for the nation. We are actually worried that much of what is being called political opposition here is just some individuals hunger to be in power, no matter what. And they are willing to get everyone in our nation to kill each other just to be in that position. The whole way in which this issue was raised and reported on and spoken by, I believe, Mr. Magaisa, speaks of a very, very irresponsible deception of the people of the nation, and also an effacing of men who have selflessly served this nation for years. Because it is a distortion of facts by a person who well knows what he's talking about. In the village where I come from right now, there still is a tractor not given to an individual, but to the community to give draft power for the sake of mechanization of the land reform program so that there may be productivity. And in that season, President Mugabe rightly judged that if we receive the land, it is important to strategically spread out machinery, not on loan basis, but on donation basis. It was actually for us as the churches a token, a very modest measure, which impressed us to see that the government was actually sensitive to the needs of us as black people who had been oppressed for years and who had lost much. If you notice now, the smearing that is being done falsely, as if any church or any individual received a loan, it is actually being focused on indigenous churches. And it is a pathetic misconception and a lack of, I don't know whether it's a lack of political maturity or education or whatever it is. But we in the churches, for example, when President Mugabe said, well, if there are any indigenous churches which are working with communities, like Mapostoles and others, we can give you a tractor or two through this mechanisation scheme. It was received not by individuals, but by them on behalf of the churches which they served. So I want to express it very clearly that the indigenous churches, which are really, my zone as their spokesman at the moment, men like Bishop Mutendi, men like Dr. Ezekiel Guti, have served this nation in ways which people like the writers of these articles will never even imagine or be able to do. Bishop Mutendi built, beginning with his father, who inspired even the revolution for this nation, numerous schools. Is continuing to educate thousands of children, black children, through productivity on farms. Mutendi schools and the schools of the Zion Christian churches are actually funded by farming activities and other things from a philosophy that says the black people, in spite of all the oppression, should be self-reliant. And in a small, modest token, President Mugabe gave a tractor or two, which is now being represented as a loan. And in a situation we as the indigenous churches are saying, the so-called traditional churches received massive grants. The missions you see, they did not buy even a piece of the soil. They have been continually sponsored by funds which are given to NGOs by governments which are foreign to support their activities. The indigenous churches have not benefited in any way from support of their own government. They do not get supported even from overseas. They get supported from the wits and faith of men like Ezekiel Guti and Mutendi. Well, myself also included, I do serve the people in whatever way I can with our organization. So we were deeply aggrieved with the insensitivity, deception for political ends, and the skewed morality that is inciting our people to believe that men like us, or men like Bishop Mutendi, or men like Ezekiel Guti have been, financed or, personally fed through a loan of the kind of despicable, nature that is being talked about. This is totally false, for one thing. But we also want to call upon our people to be sensitive of the reactionary political agenda of these things. I saw, and I was very, very disgusted, that the venerable Dr. Ezekiel Guti was put by one of these reporters on Twitter aside of a British war veteran who is now claimed to be a saint helping people. And Guti was said to be a looter. The veteran was said to be a supporter of poor people. What does he know about poor people? Ezekiel Guti has worked with poor people for years and years, uplifted them to the level of building hospitals and universities and schools from means here to teach and train and lift people up. And now, here are Africans trying to lift themselves up. And one of our own is promoting the same white people. Perhaps they didn't know that these same white people, these same war veterans from World War II, are the ones who were given land freely here as individuals, stolen from our people. Now they are being touted on Twitter as the saints, not by their own people, but by a black man. This is the kind of way in which, if we want to play opposition politics, please let's play it patriotically. Let's educate our people along the right lines that can say a black person has dignity, and when he has achieved things, let it be recognized. So I urge the church, and I urge all well-meaning people, do pray for the bishops of the indigenous churches, those who are put in the line of fire and deception, like Dr. Guti, like Dr. Mtendi, to the extent ourselves and others. Pray for them and stand with them and understand that these people continue to selflessly serve you, and they have no way they are not doing it for any benefit, and you have seen it yourselves in your own lives. Don't be deceived.